Hello, friends. Today we are going to talk about something that almost every household does without much thought, and yet in the traditions of folk wisdom and the symbolic language of days, it carries a meaning that many people find surprisingly resonant once they hear it. We are going to talk about cleaning, specifically about the idea that the day of the week on which you clean your home may carry its own energy, and that one particular day, according to long-standing folk belief and the numerological and symbolic weight assigned to the days, is considered unfavorable for sweeping, washing, and clearing out the old. The belief found in various forms across Eastern European, Slavic, and broader folk traditions is that cleaning on a Friday invites poverty into the house. That is the core of what we will explore today. Now, before anything else, I want to say something clearly. We are not here to frighten anyone, and we are not here to tell you that if you swept your floor last Friday, your finances are now in danger. That is not the spirit of this conversation at all. What we are doing is something much more interesting and, I think, much more useful. We are looking at why this belief exists, what it is really pointing to, how the symbolic language of days and domestic ritual intersects with the emotional and energetic life of a home, and what it might mean for you personally. If you find that this idea resonates, some of what you hear today will feel like ancient superstition, some of it will feel like practical wisdom in disguise. Perhaps the most interesting part is that both of those things can be true at the same time. Let us begin with the ordinary experience behind this idea. You may have noticed that certain days of the week simply feel different from others, not just because of your work schedule or social obligations, but in some subtler, less definable way. Monday carries a particular weight, a sense of beginning, of bracing yourself. Wednesday often feels like a hinge, a middle point where you can look both ways. Sunday has its own quality of slowness, of something winding down, and Friday for most people carries the feeling of release, of crossing a threshold. The week is ending, something is completing itself. There is a collective exhale that happens on Friday afternoon, and you have almost certainly felt it, even if you have never put words to it. This quality of Friday, this sense of completion and transition, is actually central to understanding why so many traditions treated it with special care. When something is ending, when energy is shifting from one phase to another, many folk traditions suggest that you do not want to disturb the house too aggressively. You do not want to sweep out what has accumulated, because in that accumulated energy, in the dust and the settled air of the week, there is also the residue of what you have built, earned, and gathered. The belief is that sweeping on this day is like sweeping out your luck before it has had a chance to settle and stay. This is, of course, a symbolic reading. But symbolic readings are not empty. They are compressed wisdom. They are the way that communities without access to psychological language or energetic frameworks still manage to encode meaningful behavioral guidance into memorable rules. And this one, the rule about Friday cleaning, is worth unpacking carefully because it touches on something quite real about the rhythm of domestic life and the way our relationship with our home reflects our relationship with abundance, effort, and rest. Let us talk about what Friday actually represents in the symbolic calendar. In numerology and in the planetary tradition that underlies the names of the days of the week in many languages, Friday is the day of Venus. This is easy to see in several languages. In French, vendredi; in Italian, venerdì; in Spanish, viernes. The name comes directly from Venus, the planet and archetype associated with beauty, love, pleasure, receptivity, and also with value and material abundance. Venus rules what we attract rather than what we chase. She is the energy of receiving, of being worthy, of allowing good things to come toward you rather than going out to grab them. This is already interesting because it tells us something about why cleaning on this day was considered problematic. If Friday is the day of Venus, the day of receptivity and attraction, then the energy of that day is oriented toward drawing in, toward softness, toward allowing. Cleaning, on the other hand, is an active, dispersing energy. It is the energy of pushing out, of clearing away, of vigorous movement through the space. In the symbolic logic of this tradition, doing heavy cleaning on Friday is a little like rowing against the current. The day wants to gather. You're choosing to scatter. There's another side to this, though, and it is worth naming. Venus is also associated with beauty and order. A clean, beautiful home is very much in the spirit of Venus. So the tradition is not saying that your home should be dirty on Fridays. It is saying something more nuanced than that. It is pointing to a difference between maintaining beauty and aggressively clearing out. There is a difference between wiping a surface lovingly and throwing open all the windows, dragging out the mop, and treating the home like a construction site. The former is Venusian. The latter belongs to a different day. Now let us think about the folk tradition itself more carefully, because it did not develop in a vacuum. In the communities where this belief was most strongly held, Friday was often also a sacred day in the religious calendar. In Eastern Orthodox Christianity, Friday is a day of fasting and remembrance, a day associated with sacrifice and solemnity. In Islam, Friday is the holiest day of the week, a day of communal prayer and spiritual gathering. In Jewish tradition, Friday is the day of preparation for the Sabbath, but the preparation is completed before sundown, after which all labor ceases. In each of these traditions, Friday carries a quality of spiritual weight. It is not an ordinary workday, it asks something different of you. When you place the folk belief about cleaning inside this context, it begins to make more sense. The warning was not primarily about economics in a literal sense, it was about alignment. It was about the idea that on a day set apart for spiritual attention, for rest, for transition, throwing yourself into the most mundane and physically demanding form of housework is a kind of misalignment. You are out of step with the day. And when you're out of step with the day, the tradition suggests you may find yourself out of step with the flow of good fortune as well. It is interesting to observe how this connects to something that modern people also notice, even without the framework of folk belief. Many people report that Friday is not a good day for starting new projects, for making important financial decisions, or for major reorganizations. Not because of superstition, but because the week is winding down, energy is dispersing, and the mind is already moving toward rest. Decisions made on Friday afternoon in many workplaces are known to be less careful, less considered. The brain is tired, the attention is already somewhere else. In this light, the folk warning about Friday cleaning is also quietly a piece of practical wisdom about timing. Do the heavy work earlier in the week, when your energy is fresh and the week is still building. Let Friday be lighter. Let us turn now to what the different days of the week are actually said to represent in this symbolic system, because understanding Friday's character becomes much richer when you understand it in relation to the others. Monday is the day of the moon, and in folk tradition it is associated with beginnings, with water, with the emotional body, and with the home itself. It is actually considered by many traditions to be a good day for cleaning, particularly the kind of cleaning that involves water, because the lunar energy supports washing, clearing, and emotional renewal. Starting the week with a clean home on Monday is said to set a clear, fresh tone for everything that follows. Tuesday belongs to Mars. It is energetic, direct, and action-oriented. It is a good day for clearing out clutter, for moving furniture, for tackling the difficult corners. The Mars energy supports effort and decisiveness. If you have been putting off a difficult cleaning task, Tuesday is often cited as the day when the energy supports you in finally doing it. Wednesday is Mercury's day, associated with communication, movement, and exchange. It is a middle-of-the-week energy, versatile and adaptable. Cleaning on Wednesday is generally considered neutral to positive. It is a practical day, a day for getting things done efficiently without great ceremony. Thursday belongs to Jupiter, the planet of expansion, generosity, and abundance. In folk tradition, cleaning on Thursday is often considered especially auspicious. Jupiter's energy is associated with growth and prosperity, and cleaning the home on this day is said to clear space for abundance to enter. Many people in Eastern European traditions specifically clean their homes on Thursday before a significant weekend, a holiday, or a gathering, because Thursday's energy is thought to support welcoming in good things. Friday, as we have discussed, belongs to Venus, and Saturday belongs to Saturn. Saturday carries a heavy, serious, somewhat austere energy in the symbolic calendar. Saturn is the planet of limitation, of time, of structure, and discipline. Cleaning on Saturday is sometimes considered acceptable in a practical sense, since it is a day off for many people, but symbolically it is associated with effort without reward, with labor that does not lighten the spirit. Some traditions suggest that cleaning on Saturday feels like work that never quite finishes, that you can clean all day and the house still does not feel fresh. Whether or not you have experienced something like this, it is an interesting observation to sit with. Sunday, finally, is the sun's day, associated with vitality, with the self, with rest and renewal. In many traditions, Sunday cleaning is also considered inadvisable, not because it invites poverty, but because it is seen as a kind of depletion of your own vital energy. Sunday is meant to restore you. Using it for heavy housework is thought to drain the very resource the day is meant to replenish. So when you look at the full week in this way, the days that are most naturally supportive of cleaning are Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday each carry their own reasons for being treated more gently. This is not a rigid rule, it is a rhythm, and like all rhythms, it is more useful when you understand why it exists than when you simply follow it blindly. Now, let us come back to the specific belief about poverty. Why poverty specifically? Why does the tradition say that cleaning on Friday leads not just to bad luck in general, but to financial lack in particular? This is where the Venus connection becomes especially meaningful. In the symbolic language of astrology and folk tradition, Venus is not only the planet of love and beauty, she is also the planet of money, of material value, of what we consider worth having. In modern astrology, Venus rules the second house of the natal chart, which is the house of personal finances, possessions, and self-worth. The connection between Venus and money is ancient and consistent across many traditions. So when the folk belief says that cleaning on Friday, the day of Venus, disturbs the financial energy of the home, it is speaking in a very specific symbolic language. It is saying that you are disturbing the Venus principle at its own time. You are scattering the energy of value and receptivity on the very day when that energy is most present and most available to you. In other words, Friday is actually a day when financial energy can be gathered and anchored in the home, if you treat it with the right kind of attention, and the warning about cleaning is, in a sense, a reminder of what Friday could be for, rather than just a prohibition. This is a beautiful reframing, I think. Instead of hearing the belief as merely a superstition about what not to do, you can hear it as an invitation. Friday is a day to honor the Venus energy in your home, to arrange flowers, to light a candle, to cook something beautiful for the people you love, to sit quietly and appreciate what you have, to notice the abundance that already exists in your life rather than clearing it away. These are all things that align with the spirit of Friday, and they are also interestingly things that many psychological and spiritual traditions associate with a healthy relationship to money and material well-being. There is a well-documented connection, in practical psychology as well as in spiritual traditions, between gratitude and the feeling of abundance. When we rush through our homes on a Friday evening, sweeping and scrubbing and pushing everything out, we are in a state of urgency and depletion. We are trying to get rid of the week's accumulation before the weekend begins. And while that impulse is understandable, it is worth noticing what emotional state it comes from. Often it comes from a feeling of not being on top of things, of the home being out of control, of needing to restore order before we can rest. That is not a Venusian state, that is an anxious state. And the folk tradition, in its gentle, encoded way, is suggesting that you might want to do that work earlier in the week, so that by Friday you're not cleaning from anxiety, but resting from a place of having already done what needed to be done. Perhaps you have felt the difference between cleaning your home on a Tuesday morning when you're energized and the week is ahead of you, versus cleaning it on a Friday evening when you're tired and the week has already used you up. The result may look similar on the surface, a clean floor, a tidy kitchen, but the feeling in the house afterward is often quite different. The Tuesday clean feels like a gift you gave yourself. The Friday clean often feels like a chore you barely survived. The folk tradition is, among other things, pointing to this difference in felt quality. Let us also think about the home as a symbolic container for the life of the people who live in it. This is an idea that appears in many spiritual and folk traditions, and it is one that many people find intuitively true even without any framework to support it. The home absorbs the energy of what happens within it. It holds the residue of conversations, emotions, efforts, and rest. When you clean, you are not just removing physical dirt, you are also, in some sense, resetting the energetic atmosphere of the space. This is why cleaning after a conflict, or after an illness, or after a difficult period often feels so important. It is not just about hygiene. It is about clearing the emotional and energetic residue so that something new can begin. Given this understanding, the timing of when you clean becomes more meaningful. If you clean on Monday, you're resetting the space at the beginning of a new cycle, making room for the week ahead. If you clean on Thursday, you're preparing the space to receive the abundance and joy of the coming days. But if you clean on Friday, you're resetting the space at the moment when the week's accumulated energy, including whatever good things have been drawn in, is most present. You are, in a sense, clearing out the harvest before you have had a chance to enjoy it. This is the heart of the poverty belief. It is not that cleaning on Friday causes poverty in a direct mechanical way. It is that the habit of cleaning on Friday may reflect and may reinforce a particular relationship with abundance, one in which you are always clearing away, always starting over, never quite allowing good things to settle and stay. In other words, the day of cleaning is less important than the pattern it represents. And the folk tradition, by attaching the warning to Friday specifically, is using the symbolic weight of that day to draw your attention to the pattern. Now, it is worth saying something about the practical dimension of all this, because we do not all have the luxury of choosing exactly which day we clean. Many people work full-time, care for children or elderly relatives, and can only manage housework on weekends. If Friday evening is the only time you can clean your home, that does not mean you are doomed to poverty. That is not what this tradition is saying, and it would be both unkind and inaccurate to suggest otherwise. What the tradition offers is a framework for reflection, not a sentence. If you can choose, choose Thursday or Monday. If you cannot choose, then bring to your Friday cleaning the quality of care and appreciation rather than urgency and depletion. The energy you bring to the act matters as much as the day itself. There is also something worth saying about the difference between different kinds of cleaning. The folk tradition, when it warns against Friday cleaning, is generally referring to sweeping, which in the older symbolic language is the act most directly associated with clearing out luck and fortune. The broom in folk tradition is a powerful symbolic object. Sweeping is the act of moving things out of the home, and the direction of your sweeping matters, the intention behind it matters, and the day on which you do it matters. Dusting, washing dishes, wiping surfaces, these are gentler acts, more aligned with maintaining beauty than with clearing out, and they carry less symbolic weight in this tradition. So, if you find yourself needing to tidy on a Friday, there is a meaningful difference between a gentle tidy, putting things back in their places, washing the cups, arranging the cushions, and a full, deep clean where you're dragging furniture and sweeping every corner. The former is quite compatible with the Venus energy of Friday, the latter is what the tradition is cautioning against. Let us spend a moment on the question of what it means to honor the energy of a day in your home. This is something that many people find surprisingly accessible once they begin to think about it. Honoring the energy of Friday does not require any special ritual or spiritual practice. It can be as simple as buying a small bunch of flowers on Friday morning, because flowers are Venusian. They are beautiful, they are alive, and they bring a quality of abundance and pleasure into the space. It can mean cooking a meal you genuinely enjoy rather than something convenient. It can mean taking a few minutes to notice what is beautiful in your home, what you are grateful for, what has gone well this week. It can mean allowing the home to be a place of pleasure and rest on Friday rather than a project to be managed. These small acts, done consistently over time, do something real to the feeling of a home. They shift the home's atmosphere from a place of constant maintenance and effort to a place of genuine enjoyment. And when a home feels like that, when it feels like a place where good things are welcomed and appreciated, the people who live in it tend to feel more abundant, more at ease, and more capable of attracting the good things they want in their lives. This is not magic in the theatrical sense. It is the very ordinary, very real magic of how environment shapes mood, and how mood shapes behavior, and how behavior shapes outcomes. You may have noticed in your own life that the homes of people who seem genuinely prosperous and content often have a particular quality. They are not necessarily large or expensive. They are not always perfectly tidy, but they have a feeling of being cared for and enjoyed. There's usually something beautiful in them, something that was placed with intention, something that says the person who lives here takes pleasure in this space. That quality is what the folk tradition around Friday is really pointing toward. It is asking you to cultivate that quality, to protect it, to not sweep it away in a rush of anxious tidying at the end of a long week. The poverty that the tradition warns about is, at its deepest level, a poverty of attention, a poverty of appreciation, a poverty of allowing good things to settle and be enjoyed before you move on to the next thing. And this kind of poverty is something that no amount of money can fully address, because it lives not in the bank account, but in the relationship between a person and their home, their time and their sense of what they deserve. This is why the tradition has endured, not because people have literally observed that sweeping on Fridays empties their wallets, though some people will tell you with great conviction that they have noticed exactly that, and who are we to dismiss their experience entirely, but because the deeper wisdom of the tradition, the wisdom about rhythm, about receptivity, about honoring the energy of days and the symbolic life of the home, that wisdom continues to resonate with people who are paying attention to the subtle patterns of their lives. As you think about your own home and your own week, I invite you to notice a few things. Which day do you usually clean? What is the emotional quality of that cleaning? Does it feel like an act of love toward your home, or does it feel like a burden you're finally getting to? And when you finish cleaning, does your home feel welcoming and alive, or does it feel emptied out? These are not questions with right or wrong answers. They are simply questions worth sitting with, because the answers will tell you something about your relationship with your home and your home's relationship with abundance. If you find that you have been cleaning on Fridays out of habit, you might experiment with shifting your main cleaning to Thursday or to Monday, and see whether anything changes in the feeling of your week. Not as a test of superstition, but as a small experiment in alignment. Many people who try this report that the shift feels surprisingly significant, that the home feels different on the weekend, that they feel more rested, more settled, more as though they are living in their home rather than managing it. And if Friday cleaning is simply unavoidable for you, then perhaps the invitation is to bring a different quality to it, to clean with gratitude rather than urgency, to notice as you move through the rooms what is good and beautiful about your home, to sweep with the intention of making room for more good things rather than simply getting rid of the week's mess. Intention, in the symbolic traditions we are drawing on today, is never a small thing. It is often the most important thing. There is one more aspect of this I want to touch on before we close, and that is the relationship between the cleaning habits of a household and the financial patterns of the family over time. This is something that many people notice but rarely talk about because it sounds strange to say aloud. But families often have consistent relationships with money that seem to be embedded in their daily routines and domestic habits. Families where the home is treated as a place of pleasure and rest tend to have a different relationship with abundance than families where the home is always a work in progress, always being managed, never quite finished. This is not a judgment. It is an observation about how the energy of a home reflects and reinforces the emotional patterns of the people who live in it. The folk tradition about Friday cleaning is, in this light, a piece of intergenerational wisdom about domestic rhythm. It is saying, build a week where the home is cared for in the days of effort and honored in the days of rest. Let the home be a place where abundance can settle. Do not always be in the mode of clearing out and starting over. Allow the good things to stay. That is, I think, the most honest and complete way to understand this belief. It is not a superstition about brooms and poverty. It is a philosophy about time, rhythm, receptivity, and the kind of home that supports a flourishing life. And whether you follow it literally, symbolically, or simply use it as a prompt for reflection, it has something real to offer. I would love to know whether you have a particular day that you usually clean, and whether you have ever noticed a difference in how the home feels depending on when the cleaning happens. These small observations are often more revealing than we expect. If this kind of exploration interests you, then you might also enjoy our next conversation, which will be about the energy of different rooms in the home and which rooms most strongly influence the financial and emotional atmosphere of the whole house. It is a topic that connects naturally to everything we have talked about today, and I think you will find it just as thought-provoking. That is all for today, friends. I hope this was genuinely interesting and perhaps even useful to you. If you would like to continue exploring these ideas together, please subscribe to the channel. I would be very glad to have you here.